Oh yes, friends, I'm back and it's getting kinda crazy out there. Starfield and Sea of Stars released, Metal Gear disappoints, anti-SJWs freak out, a Switch 2 unveiling is impending, and even more. It looks like the industry is trying to get it popping for Q4. Never fear though, I'm back and Bethesda better look the fuck out. I've been trying to put it off, and honestly probably playing a little bit too much Sea of Stars, but we have got to do it. The time has come to talk about Starfield. But first, we do have some other stuff to get into, so let's get to it right away and get right down to the getting deep inside. Just time for a quick recap of the week, and that means we must once again start with Nintendo, who seem absolutely dead set on forcing me to talk about Switch 2 news every single week. We've heard about how it'll retain the portability, we've heard how it'll be more powerful and possibly called the Focus. We've heard unending rumors regarding performance capabilities, possible launch titles, DLSS, ray tracing features, and more. But now we've got what perhaps may be our first actual bit of real info. According to Eurogamer, not only is the Switch successor widely believed to be arriving in Q3 of next year or perhaps earlier, but apparently it's even being shown off to press and devs already. Seems playing Pikmin 4 and Mario Kart 8 were not the only Switch-related activities available at Gamescom this past August. There was also developer presentations of the rumored Switch 2 taking place behind closed doors. We've only heard about one real demo so far, a beefed-up version of Breath of the Wild. First question, beefed up? How exactly? Is anyone really going to notice if a 7-year-old game made for the Wii U is running at a slightly higher resolution? For that matter, is anyone going to care? If this is all you got, Nintendo, and I desperately hope it is not, this shit doesn't seem like it's off to a very good start. Of course, a single leak by a few people I'm sure are under NDAs isn't very substantial, but with dev kits already on the way out to key partners and more leaks spilling every day, we can't be too far from this thing being fully unveiled. I just hope that when it is, there's something more exciting than a Wii U game shown off with it. Old Zelda game from 2017 showcases the power of the Switch 2 doesn't exactly make for a great headline. I think we'll likely see a direct about the Switch successor probably before the end of October. Don't fuck this one up, Nintendo. Super Mario Wonder looks awesome. Super Mario RPG, awesome. And the Star Ocean remake also looks fucking sick. All we need is another Switch that's backwards compatible and with a more powerful chip. That's it. And if you can use DLSS wizardry on top of that, it should be a wrap. The one thing, however, that I would caution against, though, is assuming that we all do know exactly what's coming. We could be totally wrong. Nintendo has basically defined themselves in this modern era as being equal parts crazy and brilliant, and you never really know which one you're gonna get. Think about it. How many times has Nintendo gone and done literally the exact opposite of what everyone was so sure they were gonna do? How many times have they, out of fucking nowhere, apropos of nothing, just gone and dropped something utterly insane like a game made out of cardboard? Yeah, we might think we know it's coming, and for what it's worth, I think we all probably do, but you never really know, especially with Nintendo. What if next week Nintendo announces a new console that's just like a living room box, like a PS5, and now Nintendo Online is a Microsoft Game Pass type service, and the Switch just remains as a separate platform, purely as the continuation of their handheld branded line? Sounds kind of crazy, right? Or more specifically, maybe it sounds Nintendo crazy. Personally, I do agree with all the industry insiders and rumors that the Switch follow-up will almost definitely just be the same basic product as the current Switch, only slightly more powerful. It just makes too much sense. But then again, that's also exactly why I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo did not do it. You just never know with these guys anymore. The only thing that we can say for sure is that at this point it's their game to lose. Just try not to screw it up too badly this time, Nintendo. Moving on, we must also sadly mention this other little bit of news that broke a week or so ago about the upcoming Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. Guys, this is what you get for daring to give Konami the benefit of the doubt. Even after watching the trail of mutilated franchise corpses left in their wake get longer and longer like that Grim Reaper meme, and witnessing firsthand their consistent failure to meet any quality standard whatsoever, no matter how low, I still allowed myself a faint glimmer of hope that maybe this time things would be okay. Maybe this time there really is nothing to worry about. I wasn't hoping that they'd put out something genuinely awesome. I wasn't even hoping that they'd put out a game merely decent or possibly even slightly above average. No. This time, my desperate, outrageous expectation was that perhaps this time, maybe at least they wouldn't actively fuck anything up. That's where we're at. When it comes to Konami, the absolute pinnacle of achievement customers can expect, the best that we could possibly get from them, in our wildest dreams, is, hey, maybe they won't fuck it up too badly. For years now, we haven't rated Konami games based on how good they are compared to other games, as Konami isn't capable of or interested in making games that are good, but instead by whether or not they can even meet the modern standards of a functioning video game. They either possess no talent or refuse to make use of it, so when it comes to Konami releases, the question is never, is this a good game? It's more like, is this a game at all and not a pachinko machine? While I, of course, was never holding out hope that the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection would be some feature-rich, lovingly crafted, consumer-first fan love letter, I was assuming that it would at the very least be a functioning, playable game that would perform at least as well as it did in 2009, the last time these games were released. After all, they didn't even really have to do anything. They're just sort of ports of ports, right? No developer, even Konami, could possibly fuck up something that simple, right? Surely it's safe to be excited for this, right? There's no harm in allowing myself a little bit of excitement for that, right? They're not redoing or remaking anything. It's just a port, copy and paste. How hard could it be? There's enough cynicism in the modern gaming industry these days as it is, so this one time, let's put everything we know about Konami to the side and just allow ourselves the simple enjoyment of looking forward to a new game. No reason to be all doom and gloom all the time, right? Besides, it's Metal Gear Solid. If anything deserves optimism, it's Metal Gear, right? No, as it turns out, no. Serves me right, I guess. I'm reaping what I've sown, I'm getting what I deserve. You want to know why I'm so pessimistic and cynical all the time? It's because whenever I dare not to be, this is what happens. The universe issues a violent reminder on how hope tends to be rewarded these days. Turns out no matter how low the bar, how practically non-existent the expectations are, or how many times the games have already been ported competently, there is simply nothing Konami cannot fuck up. Even if all they have to do is dump some files to a Switch cart and print out a cover that says Konami on it. Even that is apparently too much to hope for from these pachinko-making motherfuckers. It's official. I don't know if you've seen the news or read the articles already. The Switch Metal Gear Solid Master Collection games will run worse than they did on the 360, the PS3, and even the fucking PlayStation 2. Oh, God fucking damn it, Konami. I wanted to give you this one. I wanted to give it to you, but y'all just couldn't take the fucking win. Jesus, fuck. Ugh. And now for the real rant. For our main story tonight, we must discuss Starfield. Remember how at the end of my last video, how I said things were about to get really fucking stupid? I gotta admit, even I did not foresee just how stupid they were actually going to get. Fucking pronouns! Wow. Ugh. God, it's embarrassing that I used to watch that guy. And people wonder why I say SJWs and anti-SJWs are now the same thing. But what if you're not just grifting culture war bullshit to a bunch of incel right-wingers? How is Starfield for us normal people? Well, don't worry, there's plenty of real things to complain about without having to make anything up, and we're gonna get into all of them. Now, this might not be like a super official, like quote-unquote review, because honestly, I don't think I like Starfield enough to finish it, at least not yet. I've been trying to bust through it for the past week or so, but I always just end up playing Sea of Stars. So instead, I figured we'd just do like a completely disorganized, informal rant video about it instead. Card-carrying members of the Everything Bethesda Does is Awesome Facebook group, you might want to just downvote the video now and click off. You're not going to be pleased with almost any of what I have to say. So, first things first. It's a Bethesda game. Guys, everything that just popped in your head when I said that, it's exactly what you can expect here. For better or worse, mostly worse in my opinion, it's a Bethesda game. And just like a Bethesda game, it's fucking janky. It's janky as shit, actually, and it runs like a goddamn ballsack. I have a Z690 board with an i5-13600KF and an RTX 3070 Ti, and I can barely get 45 frames per second out of it anywhere. It's so poorly optimized, I almost turned it off after an hour and just never went back. But thanks to a DLSS mod and way too many hours spent fucking around, I finally got it running at a tolerable frame rate, but holy shit was it a nightmare getting there. And man, after like 15 hours or so, I'm really not sure it was worth it. And like, I cannot emphasize enough just what a horror show it was getting this game to run even halfway decently. It left a bad taste in my mouth for it like right away. Maybe if y'all on console, you didn't have that problem, but Jesus, those of us on PCs without like a fucking 4090, it's been a horrible experience. Like, I was trying desperately to like this game, but right from the jump, man, Starfield just did not want to cooperate. The big, main, glaring, primary problem with this game, other than the fact that it was made by Bethesda, is that everything it does has been done before and done better. In some cases, even by Bethesda themselves. No Man's Sky, Skyrim, Cyberpunk, The Outer Worlds, TIE Fighter, Mass Effect. Starfield blatantly uses ideas, gameplay, mechanics, environment design, storytelling techniques, and more from every single one of these games. And in no case does it do any of it any better, or even as well. And this is not a case where I'm saying, fuck Starfield because it ripped off these other games. Rip off all the games you fucking want, I don't give a shit, just do it well. The problem isn't that Starfield stole most of its ideas from other games, the problem is that the game they made with them wasn't better than the ones it stole from. Let's talk open world. Skyrim's was far superior, as was Cyberpunk's, and I just don't see how Starfield has a chance or even an opportunity to meet or exceed that from what I've seen. The first problem is that there's hardly ever more than like 1 or 2 areas to a planet, so there's no chance for events there and quests to lead into each other and dynamically affect one another on the ground because you only have a few locations to move between. And secondly, even if there was, the fact that they've managed to turn spaceflight and navigation into little more than a series of loading screens kills any practical application there might have been for it. And as for space combat, like, geez, TIE Fighter was like 30 years ago, and Elite Dangerous, Everspace, they're on sale right now. Starfield's ship flying and combat just feels like bootleg versions of those games that actually knew how to do it and apparently cared about doing it right. Storytelling? Man, even Mass Effect 3 makes this game look like baby's first space opera. Okay, what about role-playing a planet-hopping ship captain? Yo, I played that game already and I liked it better when it was called The Outer Worlds. And compared to that game, Starfield looks like it was the one that came out 4 years ago. Like, for fuck's sake, even Space Quest 5 did that better. And, like, oh my god. The writing is, to say that it even hits like a 5th grade reading level would be far too charitable, in my opinion. Especially with Baldur's Gate 3 so fresh in the mind, man, it really makes you appreciate stuff like old school BioWare games, and even, yes, Final Fantasy 16. For all that game's problems, the writing surprisingly wasn't really one of them. Starfield is like, what if Mass Effect was in the Fallout engine and bad? Now, if you're sitting there thinking that I'm kidding, I must be exaggerating, yo, I am not. Literally, the very first thing that happens is you pick up a space MacGuffin and have a vision of some crazy Kubrick space nonsense. Sound familiar? Remind me again, what's the very first thing that happens in one of the most critically acclaimed sci-fi game franchises in history? Oh, right. And from there, it's off to find the MacGuffin. Geez, my eyes were rolling so far back in my head I almost blacked out. And so far, like, all I've encountered in my glorified MacGuffin hunt is just a handful of planets with 1 or 2 outposts on them at most. And they all use that same sort of cookie-cutter modular space-based template that you'd find in, yep, Mass Effect, to name one, copy-pasted all over the place with an utterly offensive amount of loading screens in between each. And to make matters worse, for some godforsaken reason, maybe they forgot they were working on a game that was also being released on PC, I don't know, but Bethesda left the fucking interface locked at 30 frames a second. So every one of the 5 times you need to go into the menu to plot a course or jump to a different system or move around or whatever, the whole game drops to 30 frames a second and chugs along as you laboriously drag your mouse cursor over to the appropriate icons. That right there, that's the prevailing feeling that I feel like is gonna stay with you throughout your entire playthrough. Exhaustion. Playing this game is exhausting. It feels like a chore. Starfield is weighed down by itself no matter where you are or what you're doing. When you're not slogging through the 30 FPS interface, you're bumbling through barren, lifeless metro areas that for some reason have no maps, and despite looking like an Xbox 360 game, struggle to run anything approaching 60 frames a second. And when you're not lost there, you're desperately fast traveling and chasing quest waypoints through seemingly never-ending gauntlets of even more loading screens that pop up even when you're doing the most benign possible things like opening a door to a small building, leave the house, loading screen, run to your ship, loading screen, get on your ship, loading screen, take off from the planet, loading screen, warp to another system, loading screen, pull up the nav menu, loading screen. Sometimes you'll get a stock video of your ship lifting off or landing as well, but never instead of a loading screen, always in addition to a loading screen. Somehow, Bethesda has managed to make planet hopping in your own personal spaceship annoying. The game seems tired of itself as it endlessly presents its experience to you in eye-watering browns and mute sepia tones, like some dork working in HBO color-corrected the entire thing from 10 years in the past, hoping that maybe if it looks like a bad episode of True Detective, you'll take it seriously. It just makes me want to go to sleep. Making matters worse are the art assets, which all look mass-produced and sterile. What do I mean by that? Well, like the guy who made the leaf texture wasn't talking to the guy who made the tree model. Like the person who modeled the light fixture had never seen what type of building it would be used in. Like the guy who designed the spaceport had no communication with the people who made the assets for it. Everything has a very cobbled together Unity store ad hoc sort of feel to it, and the result is a visual aspect that seems dated at best and ancient and cheap at worst. Even the characters feel that way. The idea that this is the work of a AAA developer, especially a highly regarded one, should give everyone pause. If you told me that most of the dialogue was written by ChatGPT, I'd probably believe you. The characters here, they're some of the blandest Bethesda's come up with in quite some time, and they all come across as like this haphazard pastiche of tropes from a high school creative writing textbook. Looking back, it seems almost impossible how good Skyrim was, especially when juxtaposed with this. The characters and writing from Skyrim, they all seem to have this sort of like warm, lived-in, familiar feeling to them that made the entire experience feel very personal and immersive. Starfield is like the exact opposite. It's sterile and artificial. Even the robot character that no one seems to ever get tired of attempting to stuff in somewhere is here in all its boring, uninspired glory. And its dialogue is so bland and the voice acting so tepid and annoying, I can't tell if it's trying to be humorous or if it's just fucking stupid. Even Data in Star Trek had a personality. What is this robot's personality supposed to be? Generic robot? Uninspiring automaton? I mean, fuck, even TV shows from the 1950s did robots better than this. Danger Will Robinson is cooler and more unique than whatever this fucking robot in Starfield is. And so much of the game just reads like that, like stock assets left on their default settings. Like every idea the devs had started with, well, I saw this cool thing in a movie one time, why don't we just do that? And then when someone said, I don't think that's such a great plan, someone else told that guy to get fucked and to shut up. And then, of course, we get to just the environments themselves. They all give off the impression that they were just made to look cool, like at a glance or from a distance or in a screenshot, but you weren't really expected to like explore them or, find other places in them. Very few locations actually feel like real locales and seem to be missing key details, which is honestly kind of weird considering how much work it looks like was put into details that most people would find innocuous and rarely of that much importance, like the variety of random doodads and junk arrayed around you that you can pick up. Like, why is there so much attention paid to that stuff, but on huge world-breaking stuff like the amount of ships in the spaceport of a city that's supposedly on the capital planet of an entire sector, the ball is completely dropped. It's just so weird. You model 8 different kinds of space staplers, but couldn't put any traffic in a major spaceport. Why is my ship the only one there whenever I'm leaving Neon? Isn't that supposed to be some gigantic, huge city that's a really big deal? If that's the case, why does it feel so deserted? And furthermore, why is it only like the size of 2 city blocks? And why is the capital of an enormous, powerful faction that oversees multiple systems look like the equivalent of a desert town from New Vegas with what looks like a parking lot outside of it, but for spaceships? That, again, is constantly, strangely empty. The overall result of all this is that Starfield is a game that only looks good in screenshots. Alas, though, it is not all bad. We are the fair show in America, I have to be fair. I've just sort of been throwing random criticisms at the wall here, and I know I'm making it sound like Starfield is not fun at all. Let's be clear, it is fun, but it's fun in the way like a Skyrim mod to add spaceships and laser guns would be fun. It's Bethesda game type fun. which usually means that getting to it requires you to push through a bunch of unnecessary sloppiness and unforced pain points. And whether or not you're ever able to actually find that fun in Starfield is going to depend on whether or not you really have the patience and a desire to find it, like most Bethesda games. Sometimes, when the action is more engaging than rote, and when the quest environment is more green than brown, and when the NPC I'm talking to doesn't freeze while the voice track plays over their non-animated face.
Welcome to Slayton Aerospace. Can I help you?
Sometimes, I think I might be having fun. There is stuff to like here. If you have a high tolerance for Bethesda games and think the idea of Elder Scrolls Oblivion but in space sounds fun, you will probably enjoy Starfield. The thing with Bethesda games, though, is that when they're good, it's because the experience buried under all the bugs and the jank and the poor optimization and the myopic approach to Q&A is so dope that none of that other stuff really ends up mattering. And let's be honest, even in the best of circumstances, it's really the mod community that tends to push Bethesda games from the occasionally being decent area into the territory of actually pretty fucking awesome. That's why Skyrim was awesome and has the enduring legacy that it does. The good outweighs the garbage, and the mods are really fucking awesome. That's why Fallout 4 sucked. It had all the garbage and sloppy approach to game dev indicative of any Bethesda game, but without the payoff of a game like Skyrim. That's basically every Bethesda game, and that's why I happily finished Skyrim but could barely tolerate Fallout 4. The underlying game experience just wasn't worth wading through all the slop. By some miracle, it was in Skyrim, and I'm sorry to say I do not think Bethesda has managed to pull that off a second time in Starfield. It's fun, sure, but I just don't think the magic is there, and Bethesda games need that magic to outweigh all the trash. If you don't have that Bethesda magic, all you have left is the Bethesda trash. And that, dear friends, brings us to what I think is at the heart of what's going on here. Ready for the hot take?
Fucking pronouns!
Bethesda is actually bad. They are not good. At best, they're mid. They're a mid-dev that got lucky once or twice. That's really it. It's their good games that are the anomalies, not the bad ones or the failures. Bethesda Game Studios have developed and released 10 games. Morrowind, IHRA, Drag Racing, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, Fallout Shelter, Fallout 76, The Elder Scrolls Blades, and Starfield. Out of those, how many are really, truly fucking bangers? Not ones that the Access and Legacy Media gave a 7 or an 8 to. How many are actually truly great? I would say 1, Skyrim. Morrowind was good, Fallout 3 was good too, but truly great, truly incredible, only Skyrim. Out of 10 games, only having 1 that's great and a max of 3, maybe 4 if I'm being super generous, that are even good, it's not exactly a fantastic track record. That's my hot take. Bethesda is not a legendary dev that fucks up on occasion, but for the most part releases great games. They're actually a B-tier, mid-dev at best, that usually fucks up and only got lucky with Skyrim. And to that end, in fairness to them, Starfield is right on par with what I think you should expect from them. A mid-tier RPG held back by poor optimization and even worse QA, full of ideas all borrowed from other games that all executed them better. That, while enjoyable for the most part, is largely a bland derivative experience that thinks it's way better than it is. Like I said, it's a Bethesda game. Moments of potential brilliance, but mostly just kind of a mess. Looks like once again it's going to be up to the modders to save another Bethesda game from Bethesda. I'd give it a C-, maybe. Sea of Stars, though? That shit's fucking awesome.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Yup, woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt.